Hey, what's going on? I guess it's excuse me. I guess it's squirreling time. As you can probably tell from my cough, I've just prepared myself for this. Which means it might be squirrely. Not going to be as vague and weird as last time. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more concrete. And it was a thought that was sparked when I was watching a video about orcas. Killer whales. And how they're an apex predator in their particular biosphere. They can hunt whatever lives with them, and nothing that lives with them can harm them. Some might argue that humans can harm them, so maybe they're not apex predators. Well, we're not part of their biosphere. They didn't evolve with human beings swimming alongside them. If they did, we wouldn't have lasted long. And I guess that's kind of my point. We tell ourselves we're an apex species. And I wonder sometimes if we really are. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're definitely a successful species. Can't argue that we have, at least from our perspective, a high level of intelligence compared to the other life forms on our planet anyway, that we know about. So we're successful, but are we apex? Well, individually speaking, if you throw us into, the woods, and any one of us really, with some very rare exceptions, and we encounter something like, bear or wolf, or even a pissed off moose or deer, really. For the most part, 95% of the population are going to be completely fucked and not stand a chance. I mean, you can't punch a bear to death. And I'm pretty sure if we tried to bite it, it would just tickle, And so man versus bear fail every time. Man, given time to prepare and plan and use the brain of ours, alright, we might be able to win after a fight against a bear, but if it's just like, man in woods, bear comes out of bush, boo, rawr, man dead. In that situation, not apex. Well, lost my point in the dark here somewhere. So is man an apex predator? Well, obviously we survived enough to pretty much spread ourselves across the entire globe and dominate the environment, by building stuff and basically pushing out any dangerous elements of nature that would threaten us. So with our technology and our knowledge and our ability to think, we survive that way by avoiding conflict with the things that we cannot compete against. So, random PSN notification squirrel. Like having voices in my head that interrupt when I least expect it. Anyway, I don't dare turn them off because I'll forget to turn them back on again. I got squirreled. So what is it as a species? Starting from the pre-Stone Age, when we were just fairly smart, slightly less hairy, erect ape creatures. During that time, we were fairly intelligent. Intelligent enough to, for the most part, at least avoid the predators that would outclass us, in every way physically. Eventually we figured out pointy sticks were useful, and, we learned how to at least defend ourselves or stay away from enough shit to survive. But individually, we've never been able to really do that successfully. We've always been a cooperative species. And it was our ability to learn to communicate and pass on the knowledge needed to survive and cooperate in the world that really drove us to kind of evolve and become the more successful species. So individually, we're kind of squishy and not much of a threat. Collectively, we've managed to accomplish quite a lot. And for a time, our competition against the environment, against nature, and against the other living things in our environment that could easily eat us and were a threat was enough to drive our evolution beyond merely erect apes punching stuff and collecting berries, At some point we evolved beyond the threat of basic nature for the most part, barring natural disasters or extreme weather events, or the odd encounter, when nature and a predatory environment overlap, when a human environment and predatory environment overlap, like villages in places like India and Africa maybe that overlap with the territory of leopards and tigers and like lions and the kind of stuff that will just straight up eat your ass. I'm getting sidetracked. Where was I going? So at one point in our evolution, just trying to survive against nature was enough to push us to adapt, to learn new things, to learn language, to communicate, to say, hey, look out, there's a bear. Or you go that way, I'll go this way, and we'll corner the deer. I'm not sure why it happened or if it was always there. There's, to this day, different, tribes of chimps out there in nature that will go to war with each other over territory and females. And so maybe it's an instinctive thing. We still haven't gotten beyond it. But at some point, we started attacking each other. And at that point in our evolution, I'm willing to bet, we'd gotten to the point where the only real threat to ourselves was ourselves. The only thing that could endanger a human civilization or community as a whole was another human civilization or community as a whole. And why compete? Different strains of bacteria, even though they might be overall generally the same, will compete on a single cell level. Perhaps it's written right straight into our most basic DNA to seek the overall dominance of our own particular strain. Does that explain, the racism that exists today? No, I don't think so. Maybe? I don't know. There's something deep inside of us that drives us to somehow keep winding up in conflict with each other. The difference in ideals is one thing. But at some point the rational mind has to wake up and say, hey, it doesn't make sense to just keep killing each other over different ideas. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. This wasn't going to be about, racism or anything. Fucking racist squirrel. Get him out of here. But in another interesting note, quite often our most amazing inventions and our greatest technological leaps, evolution in that sense, quite often happened because we were in conflict with ourselves. World War I and World War II spawned the creation of all kinds of amazing inventions that initially were used to kill or to give us the information needed to find people to kill, like radar. Airplane technology went so far because of Second World War advancements in it and the discovery of its usefulness in the First World War as a scouting element and as a bombing element. Now, of course, using technology to fucking blow each other to bits is a fantastic way of getting things done. I'm not suggesting it as a good way to do things. But for some reason, it's always kind of been the way of things with people, to wind up in conflict with each other. And in a way, our intelligence is to blame because different intelligences collectively, as communities have kind of separated into different ways of explaining the world and have led to different situations, both of, I guess, monetary success and poverty, both of having to live in poor environmental conditions for whatever reasons, or being blessed with good environmental conditions. There's way too many factors to jam into it. Even a whole year, Squirrels, to what happened to humanity to splinter us up like this and have us constantly at each other's throats. But I suppose one influence might be the fact that we have no longer any threats within nature that are a genuine challenge. Is there some part of our soul that seeks, an equal foe at some point? We have all kinds of movies and books and stories romanticizing, the clash of equals. The superhero who meets the supervillain. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. And then he fights the pirate Roberts or whatever, Dread Pirate Roberts, and they're both supposed to be amazing swordsmen and that kind of shit, right? It's always there. The Kurosawa films where the samurai just are equally matched. They don't even fight. They just... I'm getting fucking sidetracked by Samurai Squirrel, I guess. Fuck, he snuck up behind me, stuck me. No, actually, a samurai wouldn't do that. He'd face you up front and challenge you. But anyway, or would he? I could be wrong. Super sidetracked. So are we instinctively seeking some kind of reason to flame out rather than fade away? Are we missing the conflict that's been part of our evolution for most of it? That constant edge of not knowing if you'll survive from one moment to the next. And in a way, I think maybe we realize that having to face death on a regular basis perhaps helped us be more comfortable with it. Took the edge off the fear of it. And now we live in such an insulated and cozy society. We no longer have that. And instead of making it a series of encounters with it until finally you have the encounter with it that is your last one, and you pass from this world into whatever the hell happens next, we have only the occasional perhaps near miss, but for the most part no encounters whatsoever until the final one. And a lot of us run blind and live life as though it's going to go on forever, kind of pay the price that way and whatever mistakes they might make. Some of us live life knowing this in the end, and I don't know, worrying about it, freaking out, seeking some kind of answer somewhere. Maybe that drives us to learn something. Some people do extreme sports. I'm not even sure if this was my point. So I'm just going to pause here, try and catch the 15-minute thing before it goes off unexpectedly, and I'll be back in a sec. Alright. So. What does this all have to do with us being or not being apex predators? Think about this. Sharks, usually any shark, let's say 80% of known species of sharks. I'm probably way wrong. I'm not a biologist or marine biologist. Let's say the majority of sharks in their environments, obviously if they haven't evolved in millions of years, are highly successful. Nothing has pushed them to change anything about themselves in order to survive any more successfully than they have. Their evolution, in a way, has stalled. Bears, not really evolving all that much as far as we know. More than sharks, perhaps, but the nature of an in-air environment on the surface of our planet is that it changes considerably more rapidly than a deep sea environment. It's just the nature of it. So at least environmentally speaking, those kinds of animals will have had to evolve and perhaps will continue to evolve in slight ways more quickly than things like sharks. But their evolution isn't quick. Ours has been. But what are we trying to evolve against now? Well, I suppose the sicknesses we've created out of our own existence. Things like cancer, caused largely by our own pollution, whether it's intentional or through ignorance by what we eat, the crap we put in our food, materials we expose ourselves to, who knows? Intellectually speaking, we're kind of evolving pretty quickly as far as in a scientific, testable knowledge kind of way. But even now, we're kind of hitting the limits of what's left to explain about the observable universe. I'm not saying the known universe, I'm saying the observable universe. Seems like I'm always getting to the same kind of point where I get to the end of these things and I'm pushing for, questioning about evolving beyond the physical or beyond the form we now have to the point where we can observe and interact with a greater spectrum of reality. And I guess one way of thinking about that was beautifully illustrated by Neil deGrasse Tyson in a video I was watching one time. And I'm going to see if I can get it right. He was explaining, different dimensions of space-time. So he said a point is a zero-dimensional object. It doesn't have height, width, depth. It's just nothing, essentially, but it's something, the smallest something they can possibly be. A line has one dimension, length. A square has two dimensions, length and width. A cube has three dimensions, length, width, and depth. Now you think about a line as it's a one-dimensional thing bounded by two zero-dimensional things, points, one end and the other end of the line. A square is a two-dimensional object bounded by one-dimensional objects, four lines. A cube is a three-dimensional object bounded by two-dimensional objects, squares, six of them, bounded by two-dimensional lines, bounded by one-dimensional points, which are, points are one-dimensional, well, I guess, anyway. So, and if you go fourth-dimensional, I can't remember exactly the explanation beyond that, but that is like what we exist in. It's like a cube in time. But because we've evolved perceiving a three-dimensional world in a four-dimensional way, because we perceive the passage of time, we are enabled to conceive of a four-dimensional object represented. Oh, fuck me. See, I'm getting completely fucked in it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that at some point there's a barrier between the perception we're used to using, because it's the perception we've evolved to perceive the world we exist in, this physical three-dimensional world. That we have such a hard time conceiving of anything that exists beyond it in a fourth or fifth or sixth dimensional world. And, there's scientists out there in the scientific community, like in the, quantum physics and that kind of shit, have theorized that there may be as many as 11 dimensions of existence in our universe. I can't explain that. I can't even begin to explain that. But Mr. Tyson did say, or is it DeGrasse Tyson? I can't remember if his last name's hyphenated or not. Anyway, y'all know who I mean. He also said that it is perhaps possible that phenomenon from these fifth and sixth dimensional levels of reality may sometimes interact with our world somehow. And it is the results of those interactions that we perceive as the paranormal. And I'm paraphrasing. Sorry if I got it wrong. If you ever does happen to watch this video, but you know, I'm just a normal guy trying to fucking wrap my head around fucking reality, and somehow speaking about whether or not humanity is an apex species led me to that. Does it matter? Did we go somewhere interesting? I guess is the more important question. I think we did go somewhere interesting. And maybe it had nothing to do with being an apex species, but it kind of helped me get to the place that we wound up in. So that's a good thing. And I guess, you know, yeah, sure, great. I'm kind of stalled up now, so, you know, maybe I didn't teach anything, but maybe I gave you something interesting to think about. And at the very least, you enjoyed me babbling on about random bullshit. So, catch you on the next one, and don't stop thinking. Be excellent to one another. See you later.